welcome to the next installment of Journeying Through John. Today we're continuing to work through John chapter 6, and it's kind of the after story of Jesus talking about being the bread of life. And we even talked a little bit last week about how hard it was for this to really grab a hold of this, and a lot of people didn't understand it, and we see the effect of that today as we read verses 60 through 65. So let's jump right in. It says this: when many of his disciples heard it, they said, "This is a hard saying. Who can listen to it?" But Jesus, knowing in himself that his disciples were grumbling about this, said to them, "Do you take offense at this? Then what if you were to see the Son of Man ascending to where he was before?" And we know, looking back, that that would happen. Verse 63, "It is the Spirit who gives life. The flesh is no help at all. The words that I've spoken to you are spirit and life. But there are some of you who do not believe." For Jesus knew from the beginning who those were who did not believe and who it was who would betray him. And he said, "This is why I told you that no one can come to me unless it is granted by the Father." There's a lot to pieces here. We're only going to pick out a few things. But I think it's interesting. Jesus already knew who is kind of there for the show. If you remember, when we talked earlier, and we talked through the thread of John. The thread of John is that how many people really missed who Jesus truly was. And so many of the people that were following Jesus were the people that picked up because, hey, he fed people, and hey, he did this, and hey, he did that, and he did all these signs, and this must be really neat. Let's see what else he'll do. But then when it came down to the difficult things, what we see is many of them just backing away and saying, "I don't understand, so I'm just going to walk away now." And that's a challenge we see here with a lot of them. We're going to talk a little bit more about the disciples who stuck around even though they didn't understand tomorrow. But what we see is that oftentimes what happens with Jesus is when you get down to the nitty-gritty, when you get down to the difficult things, when the rubber has to meet the road with your faith, and you don't always understand every detail about God, what we need to do is trust him and believe that everything else that we do know about him should have an impact on what we don't understand about him. For them, they didn't understand who he was, as I mentioned that thread through John, and so they were just following him because of the signs, because they feel good about it. This is one of the dangers about church if you're basing how you do everything on the feel good about things, because sooner or later there's going to be a time where things don't feel good. We look at where we are now in quarantine with COVID-19. This doesn't feel good. So what are we doing with our faith? How is this impacting our faith? Are we walking more deeply with God, just trusting that he has this while we take time to really buckle down in our faith? Or are we saying, "God, you're very secondary in this. I may go back to church when I get back. I'm not sure." And or even now, are we the church where we are? And there's all the other questions. I don't want to go too far into that, but hopefully that makes the point. But what we do see here, and a challenge for us, is how are we going to respond when we face the difficult times? The difficult times are going to come. There are going to be things about Jesus that we don't understand fully. If you talk about end times, there are about 1,000 different things people have perspectives and speculations on what this all is going to shake out to look like. And every time some kind of world crisis comes, people start freaking out. This may be it. And maybe it is this time. I don't know. But that's the reality. I don't know, but I trust that he's got it. And everything I know about him heading into that, he's got this. I'm going to be as prepared as I know to be, but I don't know how it's all going to work out, but I trust him. So that's our challenge for today. There are going to be some things maybe you're facing even now, some questions that you may have, some different things. Why'd you let this happen, God? Are you willing to trust him? Are you willing to believe in him? Because we see that through him, all the prophecies were fulfilled throughout the Old Testament. We see that he fulfilled all those prophecies. He fulfilled everything he said he was going to do. He was exactly who he said he was. And in our lives as believers following out from that, he has been faithful. He has been just. He's not failed us once. So if things don't go our way, are we going to respond like a child who doesn't get their way and throws a little bit of a temper tantrum or pouts about it? I hope not. Or are we going to say, "You know what, Jesus, you are good. I don't understand, but I trust you because there's no one more trustworthy than you." See, this is what they had to face. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that tomorrow. But where are you? Maybe that's your challenge. Maybe it's what you spend a couple minutes in prayer. Is there anything I'm pouting about, God? Is there anything that I'm frustrated about? Am I willing to trust you in all things? I hope that challenges you. And thanks for continuing the journey through John with me. I'll talk to you tomorrow.